Hello, dear listeners. If you're new here, we're Margin Mavens, and we are obsessed with writing in our books and sharing our thoughts with you guys. In this episode, we are talking about Blood Oath by Morgan B. Lee, a paranormal reverse harem following Maven as she is placed in a quintet with 4 powerful matches. But Maven is hiding something and will do everything in her power to break the match. Or will she? So, Kayla, this was your first time reading this book.
Um,
So
I
you
wanted
can
I
lead
wanted
this one.
to fight you at the first like half of this book.
Mm-hmm.
So like I started off and I was like, okay, like mysterious female main character, it's fine. She can apparently kick ass. Okay. Gave off very big Mary Sue vibes at the start. And I was like,
Yeah, she wasn't very interesting at the start because you don't know
no.
anything about her. So for
Correct.
a little bit of a premise for those listening, Maven presents to the world that she is an atypical caster, meaning that she doesn't really have
She's a
any
human who can
reason.
use
Yeah,
magic.
she doesn't have any reason to have magic, but she is able to use magic. She is thrown into a specific house, not really meant to be anything super special. She's super
Mm-hmm.
below the radar, right? Her inner monologue is really interesting because it's very different from the way that she is being viewed by other people.
Yeah.
So we kind of get the knowledge that something is up pretty early on,
She's got
right? But
something going on. She's on a mission,
she's on a mission.
literally and figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. Like she has things that she has to do. And she's at this university for the sole purpose of finding the headmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think what you later find out is to
To
no,
Moida. She
moida
wants to
him.
Moida him.
So the beginning was very, very, very very rough for me. And there were a couple points where I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I don't know if I have the strength. I am not God. Listen, if y'all if y'all are Patreon pals, you will know what other books were read this month.
It was a rough month a little
It
bit.
was a rough month. So after all of that, reading this past week has been a ride. Okay. But
And mind you, I have been vouching for this book.
Yes.
I was really pushing for this book. And so
Yes.
I knew that the beginning is a little slower because until things really get unraveled, right? You're forced to go through this world with a character that is doing everything she can to not draw attention to herself. Um and that's very different from like our normal FMCs that we deal with that are
Right.
usually really like brazen and bold and all of these things.
Yes.
Um
It was really
Before we jump too
interesting.
far into it though, I do want to say, and I'll stop interrupting in a second.
No, go.
I do want to point out to our listeners and everything that this book is obviously a reverse harem, so it's the spicier. I think this is probably up to now maybe the spiciest book that we have like openly talked about
Yeah.
on
On the podcast. I was gonna be
the
like, no,
podcast.
it's
Our
not for
Patreon
me.
pals. Yeah, our Patreon pals have been getting this type of content from us since the beginning. But we are grown women.
Yes. We
So,
are adults. This is an adult
yeah,
conversation.
and this is an adult-friendly conversation. We are not our podcast, at least specifically the stuff on YouTube and
Spotify.
Spotify, right, is the rule of thumb always because we are adults, is that we would like our listeners to be at least 18. With
Mhm.
this episode specifically, if you have somehow found a way to be here and you have found our channel and you are not at least 18,
Get out.
get out. This isn't for
Go
you.
away. This is not for you.
This is not for you. And this isn't a like quirky, like, oh my God, don't watch this kind of thing. This is a genuine, like, as
Heads up.
two adults who find it really important to create those spaces for kids and make sure that kids are safe and protected and all of those
Mhm.
things.
This is not that space
This is
today.
not the space today. Come back next time.
Yeah.
But so there is spicier content in this one. This one isn't as spicy as the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a uphill trend in terms of the
And
spice with this
spice.
one.
Amazing. Love it.
One thing that is my favorite about this series and made it to where I have like reread this series. So full disclosure, I didn't reread this book this week leading up to this recording because by this point I have read the first book like 3 or 4 times because it's a quick read.
It is.
And read it the first time, was obsessed. Read it the second time shortly after because I knew that I blew through it really quickly and I wanted to like
Mhm.
refresh myself. And then I read it a third time before the second book came out or before I read the second book. But one of my favorite things about this, because it's not something you get a lot in specifically like why choose reverse harem books for whatever reason, is all of these characters are older than like 22,
Yes.
which is really fun.
They are all like
Adults.
adults. Yeah. Like this
Yeah.
is
So
not.
like the FMC Maven, she's the youngest of the group,
Mhm.
but
But she's
yeah,
still like what, mid-20s?
yeah. I mean, yeah. So the university that they're at is considered like a grad school.
Yeah.
So it would be after, a bachelor's degree in college.
Right.
And so that was incredibly important to me because I'm just really tired of reading about
Teenagers.
18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like in a romance
Yeah.
plot. If it's like I can't remember how old they are in like Legendborn or anything. But if it's something like
They're
that where
like
it's not.
early college age, so like
Yeah.
18, 19, 20.
Yeah, so if it's not with the focus point being, if one of the tropes that is like presented very clearly to the readers is like reverse harem or why choose or spicier in
They
any
should
way,
be
I'm just tired of reading
adult.
18-year-olds. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I
Not
try
just barely
actively
adults. Yeah.
yeah, I try actively to avoid that cuz for me it's really weird.
Amen.
Um and so I that was one of the things that drew me in, is the fact that they're actually older and um they're all, we find out, respective badasses in their field or in their family or in their
So it's
thing.
it's funny because I texted Steph and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, does this book, like, where does this book pick up?
Mhm.
And then within maybe 10 minutes,
Oh,
15
yeah.
minutes, I
I
was like,
hadn't
oh,
even
we're good.
answered her yet.
Yeah. I was like, never mind, we're good. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't remember, I think what ultimately sold me on this book was Balefire. So
You
for
would. The golden
the
retriever.
golden retriever dragon shifter, he
Yeah.
is just once. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit.
I know we get excited and then
I need you all to know that at the start of this book, I was like, what the fuck is going on with these names? Because the names were
are
taking me
funny.
out.
Are funny.
It's you have Maven, who's
Mhm.
the female main character.
Which we know we love a Maven.
Yes, of course. Don't know if I love that for like a name, but we do love being called Mavens. But then we have Balefire,
Mhm.
Crypt,
Mhm.
which Crypt the Nightmare Prince, which just
I love him.
it took me out. It took me out. Then we have Silas,
Mhm.
which
Silas
is
Crane,
which then we have Everett Frost.
which is the ice elemental.
Yes. And then wait, am I forgetting one?
No. That's the
No.
4.
No, yes I am. And then we
Oh,
have
yeah.
Kenzie.
Yeah.
Just like
We
these
love our
names are
little
all over
shifter.
the place.
I kind of appreciated that
Oh.
because they're all of them apart from Maven, right? Well, even
Mhm.
Maven are not from like a normal human upbringing.
Right.
So it makes sense that all
It
of
does
their
make sense
names
that they have
are
really
weird as hell
there is a
because they're like,
spectrum.
yeah, because they're not trying to like blend in any case. They're just trying to like continue on their like
Legacy.
family
Yeah.
legacy and all of these things. So their families are obviously like, yeah, we're gonna name them these things that are gonna be really quintessential to who they are and what they're it's almost like back to like medieval time of like, I'm
Yes.
gonna name you cobbler because you're gonna be the
Yes.
family's cobbler.
Cobbler. Yeah. Exactly. So it really took me out at the beginning, but I think there were two scenes, like one that got me hooked, and then the other one that solidified this book
It
for me.
kept me. Mhm.
The first one was Balefire and his whole reaction. Like once the keeping or whatever it's
Keeper
called,
ceremony.
the
Mhm.
keeper ceremony happens, Balefire's like, bet, done. You're my boo. You're my mate. And I'm like, we love a man who knows his place. We truly do.
Yeah. So for those who are getting confused, within this university, within this society, they go through a ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every group is made up of 5 people, and it tends to have the keeper, who is thought to be the most important. They're kind of the leader.
Yep.
And then you have the
Four
4
others.
others
Mm-hmm.
who kind of just fall in to rank based on, whatever. And so the stronger the keeper is the stronger that they're the stronger that their, you know,
Quintet is
quintet are going to be. And so the 4 that she gets put with are
the best of the best.
arguably the strongest ones at the school. And she is meant to be this like wallflower, not
She doesn't
raising
want to
any
draw
sort of
attention to herself.
yeah. And so that immediately draws attention because they're picking up on the fact of like there is something to her that no one else knows,
Right.
right? And her friendship with Kenzie is very, if anyone has seen like the Wednesday show,
Same sort of, yes.
it's
Same
the
sort of
same
vibe.
sort of bond. And like, here is a storm cloud and here is a ray of sunshine,
It's a
right?
grumpy sunshine trope in a friendship, and we love that. We
And it's
do.
really, really cute. And one thing that is put kind of into the space really early on is that all of these quintets kind of end up dating each other because of the sort of bond that they are,
Mm-hmm.
creating and stuff. Um, yeah, Balefire is really cool. I really love Crypt.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I
To
really
the
love Crypt,
surprise of literally no
but like
one.
Silas, I think is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had to rank them, right?
Yeah.
It's Silas,
Yeah.
Crypt, Balefire, and then Everett. Everett
I have beef with Everett.
slow Everett slowly works up the totem pole during the next book because we just
Mm-hmm.
start seeing a little bit more of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because Everett, for those who, I mean, most of you will probably not know, so Everett is
Everett is a professor.
is a professor. So he very early on is like, I'm not going to have
He
anything to do with this
distance.
person
Yeah.
romantic wise because she is my student,
Right.
right? Which, mind you, like no one in the university would fault him for it. It is
No.
we.
That's part of
It
being
is
a
like
quintet.
yeah, it is wholly his boundary that he is placing. And we obviously, as the series progresses, finds out more about why and all of these
Mhm.
things. Um, this series is called Curse Legacy. So obviously it goes without saying, each one of them has some sort of curse that has been placed upon them.
Right.
Right. And so it's kind of interesting. And what's also really important to note is that the quintet, the men, hate each other. They've known
Oh,
each other
yeah.
since like kids.
Yes.
And so they've all got some sort of beef with each other. And
Yes.
Maven, very early on, is like, I do not want to be your keeper. Let me out
Yeah.
of this so you can
I
find another
reject I
one.
reject all of you. And
And they're like,
none of
no.
them. But Balefire in particular, quintessential
Yeah.
golden retriever, is just like up her ass the whole time.
You're not even allowed to do that.
But like in a respectful way. Like you think it gets like stalkerish and like uncomfortable, but
Mhm.
it doesn't, because they all respect
Her boundaries. They
her
don't try to touch
boundaries.
her because they know that she doesn't like human touch.
Right.
And
Um and it's just like so, and then this is why Crypt is number 2 for me, because Balefire and Crypt are very similar in that they will follow her and watch her
Mhm.
no matter what. Except Crypt has the benefit of being able to go into what is referred to as limbo, so
Yeah.
like the in between worlds, right? And he can just sort of like travel through that.
Mhm. And
And
he thinks he's being sneaky, and I
he
love
thinks
it
he's being
because
sneaky.
Maven is like, he's right there.
Maven pegs him like in the beginning, like, nah,
Yeah.
you're here. I can sense you. And like Crypt is like, that's weird, but also fascinating. And
Yeah.
I need to know more.
And we're not mentioning, I think, one of my favorite parts of this book, and it happens really early on, where a vampire is annoying Maven. Like, within, like, 20 minutes of reading, mind
Not
you.
even like 10 pages in, I think.
Yeah, she is like, it's the first day. She is walking around. A vampire gets in her face, gets really annoying. She kills him. Point blank,
Yep.
murders him, leaves his body there.
Yep.
And this is what kind of ends up winning me over with Balefire very early,
Hmm.
is the fact that he scented her, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, and it was
Yes.
kind of curious as to where it was going. So he was following the scent. He was like, this is my mate, like I need to find her. And
Yeah.
he sees the dead body, he smells her on the dead body, and he roasts the dead body and burns it and
Yes.
makes sure that there's no evidence behind
Yep.
what's going on. Um I really love him. Like when I rank them, right? They're all basically equal.
Yes.
Crypt wins a little bit just because of the fact that he's able to kind of like be wherever she is kind of
Yeah.
thing. I do love
But
some
he
like
also
fun.
Crypt also like picks up on her, like just who
Yeah.
she is as a person really
And
quickly.
he yeah, and we find out that she's on some sort of mission, right? And she's very sternly trying to kick them out because she doesn't want anyone else involved, right?
Right.
Inherently, she's not somebody that's like super, no matter how much she says she is, she's not somebody that's trying to be cold-hearted. Like she's just
Right.
like, you do not want to be bound to me because things are going to happen and
Hmm.
I'm not trying to take you down with me. And Crypt starts kind of putting things together because she starts going through these like episodes, right? Where we find out that she basically gets put out of commission and then she
Hmm.
wakes up and stuff like that. And so we're finding out more and more about what's going on with her.
Right.
But we don't really find out like what she is,
Nope.
anything like that. But we know that she has more power than she's letting on because of things
Yes.
that are hinted at throughout the series or throughout this book. But there comes a point where the group, right, they go off on a trip.
Oh, you're skipping the best part.
Go for it.
You're skipping the
Remember,
best part.
this book jumbles together for me because I've
It
read this
does,
one the
yeah,
most out
because
of the
it's so good.
series.
But first up, there's like some sort of like capture the flag esque uh game sort of happening where like uh each student, we'll say for lack of a better word, has a flag on them, and like your responsibility is to get like a whole bunch of them and you win or whatever. So one of the things that happens because of Maven's quintet is that it attracts a lot of attention to her because people believe that she's not worthy of these like A-listers. They're the
Mhm.
A-listers of legacies, right?
Yeah, and there's also, like, girls who are, like, jealous of her.
Yes.
Like, it
Yes,
puts a big target on her back.
it
I
does.
feel bad for everyone who puts a target on her back.
And one of those girls is named Sierra. And this is what sold the book for me, right? I was not fully on board with this book. Like it went from 2.5 stars to like 3 stars after Balefire. And then when this happens, it jumped up to 4 and like stayed there for me. But Maven ends up as they're in these woods or whatever. Maven is just gonna like be in a tree, chilling, relaxing, because she's not interested in these games. She has a goal, she has a mission,
Mhm.
her head's there, right? Sierra shows up and she's like, huh, all right, fine, and jumps down. Proceeds to beat the ever loving shit out of Sierra. Okay? Like breaks so many bones. And I'm sitting there reading. I'm like, I love Maven. Would die for Maven. 10 out of 10. Like, I knew she was a badass, but like that sort of like really like brought it in for me. That she is just like this. Oh, she's just so good. But the part that really gets me is Sierra turns out to be like a fire elemental, right? And basically literally roasts Maven. So Maven ends up jumping into a river and is saved by none other than Silas Crane.
Love him.
We love Silas,
Love a blood fae.
but the way that these men are immediately like, "Who did this to you? I'm gonna go kill them." It's we love a touch her and die trope, and it was
Especially
just
when there's like 3 of them. Yeah.
yes, and the best part is they don't need to because she's such a badass in her own right that she can fight her own fights. Like I that whole scene, I was like, all right, I'm in. Like I'm in. It's like about halfway through the book, but I was like, I'm in. I'm in. I need to finish this. I need to figure
Yeah.
out what happens, like all of that. It was so good. It was just so good. And then God, what else happens before? There's something else that happens, but I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. Oh, that's right. Silas. So, something that happened. I don't remember why it happened. I think Balefire broke her door down or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then Silas decided to get a replacement door and put a bunch of wards on it and made sure that only the door would only open for her, but also for him because of course he did, right? Because, and hold on a second. So then he ends up sneaking into her room while she's out and finds her list. Now she made a list of like, what can I do to make these men hate me so they'll leave me alone? And he finds the list, and all of a sudden, everything clicks into place for him. And you know immediately that he's up to something. He's going to do something, and it's going to be great. And that is what eventually leads to this trip.
Yeah.
And it was really clever of them. But I also understand why Maven was furious.
Yeah. And so when there's 5 people in any group, there's bound to be some sort of miscommunication. And
Yes,
I hate me a miscommunication trope.
same. That's why it's 4 stars for me.
Mhm. And so they create this trip, right? Silas figures out that Maven is actively doing these things to hurt
Mhm.
them and get them to not be involved. And he doesn't even get mad for a second.
No.
He's like, "Oh, she's so smart, and I
He's
love her for
he's
it."
thrilled about it. He's like, this makes sense, and also
Yeah.
this is so clever, and
Yeah.
like he's
And
he's all in.
so they create this trip, and it's going to be all of them together. And so spiciness ends up ensuing, right?
Mhm.
Which was a really big deal for Maven. Like she's very like abhorrent to touch. She does not
Yes.
like it. She knows what her end game is, so she really didn't want to get these boys involved.
Mhm.
And so it ends up being Silas Crypt and Balefire
Hellfire.
are in bed with her, right? Things seem to be going great. The readers are like chewing the ends of the book or the
Yes.
Kindle at this point because they're like, oh, thank God, like
Yes.
they're coming together. It's where it's supposed to be, stuff like that. Because a why choose is not fun if she's not choosing any of them.
Correct.
And so you're finally getting excited, whatever. And then they have this moment, and it's a really cute moment despite how like spicy it is for
Mhm.
kind of coming out of nowhere in terms of like the rest of the book. And Everett opens his cold mouth and he's upset because he wasn't in the situation, right?
Right.
Which he chose to not be in the situation.
Right.
But he lashes out
He does.
and basically tells Maven, like, we had a bet going as to who would get you to crack first.
Yep.
And he ruins the moment, he ruins everything. The downward spiral of this book really is because of him.
Yep.
And fast forward, right? I believe Kenzie at this point is missing, which is the whole reason they're trying to figure out what's going on.
They
And
don't know Kenzie's missing. It
yeah.
doesn't like, I guess if I recall correctly, one of Kenzie's quintet is trying to reach Maven to find out
Mhm.
where Kenzie is. And she has gone like full incommunicado. She doesn't want to hear from anybody. She's furious. She's hurt, which more importantly, she's hurt and she's upset.
And she's upset that
Um,
she's hurt because she's
she's
like,
upset that
I've
she's
been
hurt.
trying to hurt them this whole time.
Yeah, and then I let them in and they hurt me instead. Like it's
Yeah.
classic. But yeah,
Mhm.
so it turns out that Kenzie's missing and you don't realize it. First of all, the audacity of this author to end this book like that. Okay? The way I was all comfy cozy in my bed. I was reading. I was like, it was so spicy. I was like, oh no, Everett, why would you do that? And then I'm just like laying there. And then the second it looks like Kenzie's doing something she's not supposed to be doing, my butt is practically out of bed. Like I am like sitting
Yeah.
straight up, face in my iPad. Like, what is happening? So basically, you discover at the end of this book, and spoilers if you don't want to be spoiled. We haven't really spoiled a whole lot, I don't think, up until this
In
point.
terms of like Maven stuff, no,
Yeah,
but we
in terms
have
of
talked
plot.
about the plot. So like,
Not really, because like it's a wide choose, so like it makes sense that eventually they're
yeah.
gonna end up in bed together. Like we haven't really spoiled like a lot for you.
Mhm.
Um, but basically we discover that there's also another form of, paranormal creature person thing called a
Mhm.
changeling. So if you are at all familiar with excuse me, with Dungeons and Dragons, or even like Supernatural, you know that like with the shapeshifters, you know that changelings can take on just about any form that they want within reason. Um, and this is I like it because it's a mix of Dungeons and Dragons and Supernatural. So like in Supernatural, there's shapeshifters that can like literally take like the form, same thing as a changeling, except I think in that case they have to kill the person in order to be able to do so, which is um somewhat similar to what's going on at the end of this book. We don't actually know if Kenzie's dead, but we assume that she might be. Or
Kayla's looking at me really strongly, and I'm having to not make any sudden
it's
movements,
fine.
guys.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to tell me. I will just die while I wait to read the second book. But anyway, so basically what happens is Maven is barreling headfirst into her mission, which is to kill the headmaster of this university. And she hears something in the headmaster's office. She's waiting for the right moment to like surprise him and take him down and then leave. And so when she goes into the headmaster's office, she sees Kenzie and a dead headmaster. So she's confused, right? And at
So are
first,
we.
we were all confused, right? And then she realizes that there's something about Kenzie that doesn't seem right. And Maven discovers that it's actually a changeling pretending to be Kenzie. And Maven is. This is probably this is going to sound weird, but this is like the sweetest part of the book because Maven is like sort of spiraling at the thought that her best friend is hurt or kidnapped or even worse, dead somewhere, and she doesn't know. And like she has this moment of like, oh my gosh, what happened to Kenzie? And she's trying to find out, but the changeling gets the better of her and ends up, if I recall correctly, stabbing her with her own knife, with her own dagger, which was sort of dope. And like one thing that this author does really, really well is write these action scenes because it's like visceral, the way that you feel each punch, kick, stab, all of that. It's very, very well done. Like super duper kudos for that. So then Maven's dead, right?
Yeah.
And the boys are trying to find her.
Yeah.
And who finds her first? Crypt.
Love him.
Crypt finds her.
Really solidified first spot for me.
Yeah. And he's ready. He's
To end the world.
He's ready to end the world. He's on the verge of a giant breakdown, right? And then he looks closer at Maven and sees her wounds are healing. And then when he takes the knife out of her chest, it heals. And she's breathing and she's alive. She's very, very weak because of the massive amount of blood loss that she's had to deal with. But like, she's alive. And this book ends with her being like, my death never sticks. And then Balefire, Silas, and I don't remember if Everett was with them. I don't remember.
I can't
I
say
know
anymore
for sure
because the ending of this and the beginning of the next really blend in for me. So I'm just here enjoying the ride.
Balefire and Silas, at the very least, show up at the end. And it's just like, that's how it ends. Like, it ends with Maven having been dead but not dead, and then Crypt finding her, and Balefire and Silas being there. I don't remember if Frost is there or not, but we'll figure that out in the second book. And Kenzie might be dead. The headmaster is definitely dead. And for further context, there is this quintet called the Immortal Quintet.
Frick those guys. Anyways.
They're basically like, well, given the fact that we're recording this the end of November, they're like the Wizard of Oz times 5, right? They all have their strengths. You know, they're a quintet and they're very strong. They're very old. It's like very much like Wizard of Oz, like they're controlling.
Crypt's dad is in it.
Crypt's dad is in it. So killing the headmaster is attacking the Immortal Quintet.
It is treason to the highest degree in this society.
Yes. So the boys walk in on all this, and they are left wondering what the fuck and how the fuck. And we still don't know if Kenzie's okay. I almost immediately started book 2, and I was like, if I start book 2 right now, I'm not going to be able to talk about book 1. So I
haven't read book 3. Listen.
I stopped myself.
So, yeah, I think
I liked it.
This book is really good.
Surprised.
The second one I think is a lot better, which is saying something because I thoroughly enjoyed this book given how many times I read it and everything. I really like when Why Choose authors take the time to really flesh out each pairing and why they would work, and flesh out each love interest, whether it's, you know, even Everett, who doesn't get a lot of screen time in this, he kind of ends up being built out to where you
still learn a lot about him in the few chapters that are from his point of view. Because you also, by the way, for those who don't know, this is a multi point of view. I was going to say dual point of view, but it's like multi. It's from everybody.
First off, those are my favorite kind of wide shoes
Yes.
because you need to know how each person thinks and feels, and not just from the girl's point of view or the main focal point's point of view.
Right.
Because there's only so much that you can get from that when, like, if this would have just been told from Maven's point of view the entire time,
I wouldn't have finished it, honestly.
One, it would have been a lot more kind of easy to figure out what's going on because you're just in her point of view the whole time. But then two, there's only so much you can really find out in terms of like what makes these men different.
Right.
If you're just viewing them through a lens of Maven who's not trying to get to know them.
Right.
And so getting all of their different POVs, each one felt like its own built out character, and you understood why they were in this quintet. You understood why they would be a good pair for Maven.
Yes.
And that
You
was
discover
incredibly
more
nice.
about their curses. You discover more about their individual relationships. Like Balefire and Silas aren't quite as, there's not as much animosity necessarily between them as there is between like Balefire
Crypt and everyone.
Yeah, Crypt and everyone. Balefire and Frost and Silas. Like it's very, very well done.
And I think it's also like giving kudos to where kudos are due. It's incredibly difficult to write a good multi-POV. They're some of my favorite types of books, but it's so easy to kind of fall into the detrimental pattern of they're all going to sound the same.
Right.
Because ultimately it's the same person writing them, right? But I really like that the writing style is consistent throughout all of the different POVs.
Yes.
But you're really getting those nuances.
In
the and
work.
that's incredibly difficult from not just like a reader standpoint. I can really appreciate that, but from someone who's tried writing multiple POVs for different like projects and everything, it's incredibly difficult.
If you've ever read, what's it called? The Vicious Lost Boy series, and you enjoy that reverse harem sort of story, you will enjoy Cursed Legacies. I have decided, because I read Vicious Lost Boys like at the start of my like
reverse harem journey.
Well, not just reverse harem journey, but like my rediscovering my love of books journey. And it was enjoyable for what it was, but you almost kind of wish you had more fleshed out, like the male characters were more fleshed out and you got to learn more about them. And I feel like in this one, that's what you get. And that's really, really great to see that. And it's not just about the spice. If that makes any sense. For those of you who have read Vicious Lost Boy series, you'll know what I mean. But like in this book, it was not just about the spice. Like, because it would have been easy to just sort of like
fall into the white
spice,
shoe cycle
right? Of just constant like sex and games and all of that. But like there's actual plot here and there's actual story here, and it's being written in a very particular way.
Which for any of our Patreon pals, y'all know how much I've been missing.
Yes.
A good plot heavy spice book. And so these are incredibly fun. I will be rereading the second one because I think I've only read that one once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
I will be rereading the second one, and I'm super excited to see Kayla lose her mind on that one. Because we get more answers in the second one, but we're also left with more questions.
Naturally.
Yeah, like the stakes are obviously higher.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. There's going to be 4 books in the series. The third one just came out.
Okay.
And that's all you get.
I would recommend it. I would give the first book a read. If at the end of the first book you're not interested, then you're just not interested. It's not your thing. And that's okay. But you have to give it. This is one of those books, like you gotta give it the whole. And I know a lot of people have asked me in the past, like, why would I finish a book that I didn't like? And this is why, because if I had DNF'd this book when I didn't like it, I would have missed out on the end, and it would have been
Yeah,
sad.
I am a big advocate for do what makes you happy. So if DNFing a book is what makes you happy,
Right.
I am not a DNFer
No.
almost to a fault because
Yep.
there's books that I will 100% be like, I'm not really enjoying this, but
Yep.
it feels almost worse in my brain if I don't finish it out.
Right.
And so that's one of my weird goals for 2025 is to get more comfortable not finishing a book
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many books in the world to read and I get it,
Yeah.
but I gotta get past the mental block of DNFing a book because it almost feels like if I DNF a book, I let the book win, you
Yeah.
know?
You don't want to let the book
And
win.
I can never let the book win.
No. You can't let that author win. No,
Mm-mm.
absolutely not.
But thank you, listeners. This has been another episode of Margin Mavens. We are nearing the end of season 1.
Yes, we
By
are.
the time you guys are listening to this, we have a couple videos left, and then we will be going on a break. And then season 2 will be starting back up in January. So make sure you are telling your friends about us. We have a couple numerical goals we're trying to hit by the end of this year.
Yeah. If you can
So
make
that'd
that
be really
happen,
cool.
let's go. All I want for
Um,
Christmas is more
recognition.
subscribers. Is attention, except not too much attention. Just
Yeah, don't
the
perceive me
right
too much, but
authors don't perceive us, but also perceive us, if you know what I
yeah.
mean.
Yeah, that's been the whirlwind of the last couple weeks. Is
Weeks,
we have
months.
months since starting this. You know, we kind of were assuming we were gonna like talk into the void and the void would occasionally answer back. But it turns out the void is a little bigger than we expected.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you guys for being here.
We love you.
And we love you very much. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.